Hello, welcome back. This is Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony, back to talk about the early part of the summer coming up. Astrologically, we're just moving out of what was some pretty crazy energy. If you saw my video that I did in late March, that when I talked all about April energies with the Mercury retrograde, the eclipses, and the big conjunction between Jupiter and Uranus on April 20th. And today is May 22nd. So you can see that what I have in front of you here is just some key dates going out to about early July. Beyond that, I'll do another video. It's going to get pretty interesting after that period with another Mercury retrograde as Jupiter is going to square Saturn. And then we'll get into more of an eclipse season again in the fall. But we'll talk about all that later. For now, I want to talk about how we're transitioning out of that crazy energy of April, and where it's leaving us right here. So like I said, today is May 22nd. It's Wednesday. Actually, tomorrow morning, there will be the full moon in Sagittarius. Okay. And it's very lit up kind of energy with this full moon. It's interesting because what it's doing is it's the ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter. That is joining Venus at 29 degrees of Taurus, and they're both forming a sextile to Neptune at 29 degrees in Pisces. And so if you're not familiar, 29th degree is considered a critical degree. It's sort of like, it's the last chance essentially for that energy. And so with Jupiter expanding on Venus in the sign that it rules, Taurus, and they're forming a sextile to Neptune, which has been in Pisces since 2011 and is now, making its final. Basically, it's hitting the 29th degree, and its next retrograde, when it comes back and moves forward, it's going to enter Aries for the first time in anyone's lifetime that's alive today. So there is something that has been building. And there's a bit of a culmination happening right now. And so this energy and it's also very, very associated with Pisces. Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces. Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces, and they're in a sextile together. So that's going to be the first thing we're going to talk about here on this list. But it's really this full moon is bringing that energy forward because the ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter. And then another part of that Pisces connection is that Venus, which is, again, conjunct Jupiter, 29 degrees Taurus, is actually a planet that is exalted in the sign of Pisces. So there's a strong Pisces theme, which has the meaning of endings, okay, and completions and culminations, okay? And so that's why that energy is really strong. There's a sense of, and if you follow my posts on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you can follow me there for more frequent updates. But I just posted about the full moon there on my socials, and I talk a little bit more in depth about that. But for the importance of this talk here, I just wanted to show how that full moon is just bringing in this Jupiter sextile to Neptune at 29 degrees from Taurus to Pisces, and that's going to kind of linger on for the next week or so, but it really is setting something in motion. This idea of completing something, okay? And Jupiter sextile Neptune is gentle in nature. It can be also very subtle. So this is something that's very background, subtle, like things are clearing away. It's almost like, for whatever reason, this analogy is coming to my head. It's almost like when you stay at a hotel, when you like, you leave your hotel and you come back and you've had maid service done. It's like there's something cleaning things, like while you don't have to put any effort into it, things are getting cleaned and ready for you, right? So that's the kind of energy that this kind of feels like. So there's a bit of a sense of a subtle behind the scenes cleaning to prepare. And so as we move forward here, like I said, that's the first one we want to talk about. And so what it looks like here in the chart. There is a Jupiter up at 29 degrees. There's Neptune. So this is an image taken shortly after the full moon, because Venus has moved on into Gemini. And this photo here, just wanted to get the exact sextile between those two. You can see still lots of energy going on in this sector of the chart here. With Mars is just pulling off of the North Node here. It's about to hit Chiron. as we head into the weekend. It's also going to be right around the time that Jupiter enters Gemini, which we will talk about. So lots of things going on. So moving on then. So there is the next thing on our list. It's Jupiter entering Gemini. So that is happening on Saturday. Okay, so today's Wednesday. So Saturday the 25th, that is when Jupiter enters Gemini. And if you notice, it's Pluto is, in the early part of Aquarius. So that's a pending trine coming up. And we'll talk about that in a second as well. But just to focus on Jupiter in Gemini. So, Jupiter takes about 12 years to get around the zodiac. So every 12 years or so, you have another revisit. So you can go back to, 2011 into 2012. I think that's when it was, it was in Gemini, I believe, 2012 to 2013. Yes. So, like spring of 2012 to like spring of 2013. That's when Jupiter was last in Gemini. So I think what was going on then, because that can get us, kind of some hints, maybe perhaps as we spiral our way through evolution in this life. So it's not like it's going to be the exact same way it was before, but you might get some ideas of themes in your life. But generally speaking, it's just a lot. It's about expansion of options. So it's very energetic. Jupiter is a little uncomfortable in Gemini. It's kind of an anxious energy, right? And Jupiter is large, so it's like it can almost amplify that sense of anxiety that can come with multiple choices or multiple options, and having to make decisions. So it's going to be a time the next year or so of options and decisions, and in a sense of it being difficult to really commit to any one direction or any one thing at this time. So on a positive note, that there's a freshness here coming in, right? And so if our hotel just got cleaned, right, like it's getting cleaned right now with Jupiter sextiling Neptune, as it exits Taurus and then enters Gemini, now it's like, all right, we got a new playing field, and play is actually a really good word for Gemini. So we enter this new playing field, and positive side is there can be a lot more to work with, a lot more people to interact with, things like that. Negative side could be too much. Sometimes too much of something is too much of something, right? So that's kind of thematic with Jupiter in Gemini. So like I mentioned, one of the first things that Jupiter is going to do, so it enters on the 25th, Saturday, then about a week later, here it is, trining Pluto exactly. So that's going to be about a week plus where it's in the 1-degree orb. So really the last few days of May into the first week of June, essentially, is going to be when we have this trine being within that 1-degree orb, where it's going to be, part of what our experience. And we can also look at when that occurs. Also notice is what's next on my list. Venus is going to be approaching a conjunction with the sun. Okay. And that would be on June 4th, and just a couple days later, that becomes exact. And that's an interesting thing too. If you remember, we had Venus retrograde here last, like it was late summer. Venus retrograded, and so when they made their what's called inferior conjunction, so when Venus retrograded back over the sun in, I think it was August 13th of last summer. So about 10, 11 months ago. Yeah, 10 or 11 months ago, whatever it was. And so that kind of sets, like, that's almost like a seed planting time, sort of like a new moon, right? And so now we have like the full moon phase of that cycle. So what we were planting back in the late summer last year, now there's a sense of fruition coming through here with Venus catching back up with the sun. And that's going to happen at 14 degrees Gemini. So and I'll show that in a second, but just back to the Jupiter Pluto. I got sidetracked there a little bit, got a little too excited, but anyway, so Jupiter trine Pluto, again, this has a lot of potential amplitude to it. Okay, Pluto very transformative. Jupiter wants to expand things, so it's one of those energies that has to be tapped into in order to benefit from it. But there's a lot of possibility here in this, as we move into this new energy field, this new playing field of where to focus. It's another strong word for Pluto. Is like where can we attempt at least to focus now that like it seems like our options are opening up suddenly. Where do we start, right? Because if we have a lot of things on our plate, we got to really prioritize and focus one at a time, if possible. And so this could be a situation where what we've been building, all of a sudden there's an opportunity, like a connection. That's another Gemini thing, and suddenly there is like a foundation underneath it, and it's like it has this opportunity that it could grow if tended to. So again, it's not going to just come in out of left field like in a surprising manner. It's just like a time of potential empowerment if we're willing to take it at that time. So that keep that in mind here. Again, that's the first or the last couple of days of May here, like starting next week, right on to the first week of June. And then I already alluded to this, the June 4th, 2 days later, the superior conjunction or the full moon phase of the Venus-Sun cycle. It's going to culminate here at 14 degrees Gemini. So this is just so that Jupiter will still be in 1 degree orb of that trine to Pluto when this happens. And so this is a very auspicious kind of bunch of energies that we're talking about here. So even the full moon that's going to occur here tomorrow on Thursday, May 23rd, it just kind of, it's, I hate to overhype anything, but there's just a lot of positive potential in the energy right now after a very intense period that we were just coming out of, like when we moved to April, those eclipses and whatnot. And so there's just a real sense of there being room to work with now. Things have been cleared. We might not have been 100% conscious of the clearings, but there is a sense that like we're over certain things that were holding us back, that we're, and then like our lives might present us with what we're ready for, what we kind of on an ego level have been wanting, but haven't been internally ready for. It's like now is the time things can just start to fall in, right? Here it's sort of like that time of actual manifestation. So you can try to manifest all you want, but there's certain clocks set in motion, and sometimes we can't force things to happen before everything is ready for them to happen. And so there's a sense of that. So think back to think back even as far as 2020 when Venus was retrograde in Gemini. Okay, so what have we learned in the last 4 years? Especially when it comes to like our self-worth, money, relationships, that kind of thing. And then again, think about just last summer, like August plus or minus, when there was the Venus retrograde, and they were together in Leo. That's where they met there. What is culminating now that we were seeding back then, okay, just late last summer. So just keep that in mind. But there is a sense of things coming together, like everything's in like a culmination, like freshness kind of phase right now. That moves us on to the next significant event. That's June 14th. So about 10 days after that, the Venus-Sun superior conjunction. Now we have Mercury doing the similar thing with the Sun. So Mercury, it's going to go retrograde 3 times a year, so it's not as special, quote unquote, as when something like Venus goes retrograde. But Mercury was just recently retrograde, like we said, in April, from April 1st to April 25th. So my last video, I talked about that. And it was at its inferior conjunction. So when Mercury backed into the Sun, that was April 11th. So mid-April, plus or minus, what was going on then, because this now, with them meeting up at 24 degrees of Gemini, has a bit of that culmination energy as well. So, and notice that Venus is going to be pretty close by to those two as well. So it just enhances things, okay? So there's everything is speaking to this idea that what we've been working on, things can kind of flow here, and the next couple months are very flowing. Okay, and so the next couple things are pretty quick. We won't harp on them too much. The reason why I'm including them both, though, it's Saturn retrograde at 19 degrees Pisces, Neptune retrograde at 29 degrees, supposed to be Pisces. I forgot to put it in there. But it is Pisces, so very Pisces thing to do, right? To be omitted. And so Saturn is about 10 degrees off from Neptune. And I'm mentioning that because that's in a very important transit that is on the horizon here. It's going to be building in 2025, and it's in early 2026 when Saturn actually catches up with Neptune at 0 degrees Aries. So this is the Aries point, like one of the most potent points in the zodiac is at 0 degrees Aries. And they're going to meet up there. And I've got a lot to say about this. I don't want to get into it here. I just want to mention that they're both going retrograde. These would be their last retrogrades. I should say the next time they go forward, they will meet up with each other, or they will. I should say that they're both going to enter Aries before they meet up with each other. But then it's in 2025. They're building up that relationship that will happen in early 2026. In other words, so this is kind of the last hoorah for both of them in Pisces as far as retrogrades go, and or retrograding together, I should say. And so that's just important to note because that has a lot to do. So there's Saturn there, and then there's Neptune there. So it's Neptune and Saturn, they're not with each other yet, but they will be. And just to give you an overall flavor for that, Neptune, like I mentioned earlier, has been in Pisces since 2011, and Saturn's been there since I think February, March of last year, 2023. And then it's going to flirt with Aries for a bit, and it won't be completely out of Pisces until early 2026. Okay. Same thing with Neptune is going to be moving on around that time too. So they're going to meet up with each other right there at the 0 degrees Aries point. And so what's happened since 2011 with Neptune in Pisces? Just like I said, I don't want to get too far into it because I think I want to do a whole talk about that aspect as you get closer to it. But Neptune in Pisces has on the negative side, it's been a time of deception, especially in the media. Okay. And that's what I really feel like this has a lot to do with is kind of like media narratives. That's been Neptune in Pisces, and Saturn in the last year plus that it's been in Pisces has been a lot of corrections to media narratives, right? Things that we were told that we now know aren't true, or things that we thought were true, we're told weren't true, we find out are true, right? And you probably have an idea of what I'm talking about, different topics and whatnot, especially when it comes to the illness, etc. So this is kind of like the F around and find out. So Neptune F around, Saturn find out. And so we're going to be finding out a whole lot more the next couple of years. And I feel like when they do reach each other at 0 degrees Aries point in early 2026, to me, that signifies the death of corporate mainstream media. And because Aries has a lot to do with independence and whatnot. And I feel like the 3 years leading up to early 2026, so the last year, the next couple of years coming up, are the times when the average person just isn't going to be going to those sources for news anymore. So it's already in process. It's been happening for years, but it's going to hit a tipping point, I think, that's going to be signified by the entry of both of those at the 0 degrees Aries point, where now what is true is something that people are number one is more independent sources for it, and that people as individuals are going to have a higher degree of respect for independent sources that that can show their work, and kind of like a loss of respect and just a discarding of the old way of getting information, just turning on Channel 6 News or whatever and getting information that way, because that we're finding out with Saturn moving to Pisces how we've been manipulated, how narratives have been driven, and how facts, because that's Saturn in Pisces has a lot to do with karma, right? And so if you're informing in one direction that isn't true, the karma in that situation is what the truth coming up, right? And so that's really that relationship there. But just note that both Saturn and Neptune will be going retrograde here in the coming weeks or so, and that they're building something together. Okay, and it's going to be like I said, I get the sense this had a lot to do with the transition and that final push that makes independent media more legit than corporate media. And I think it's that tipping point is going to happen around that time. My opinion, but feel free to have your own and share anything you want down in the comments below. Anyway, that brings us to our last aspect here on this list. It is on July 9th, so about a week after Neptune goes retrograde. Now Jupiter, which is moving pretty quickly, so it enters Gemini on May 25th, this Saturday, and then it's that's after coming off that sextile to Neptune, where it was right where it is now at 29 degrees Taurus. And it's going to make that trine to Pluto. That's going to last a week or so in early June. And then it's moving, and then it's going to be in a position where now it's sextiling the north node, and therefore trining the south node. So there is a sense at that time, here July 9th, plus or minus, of, again, momentum. Like Gemini, as fast as it is, Jupiter expands. Jupiter is in full speed. It's moving 10 degrees in the next, just over the next month or so, month and a half is moving 10 degrees. So it's pretty fast for, I wouldn't call it an outer planet, but it's fast relative to other larger planets that have longer orbits, etc. So this could be a time of, we've spent this entire spring with the North Node in Aries really activated by Chiron and the eclipse, and the sense of what the April 8th eclipse in Aries had to do with. There could be a sense of things moving ahead here. So there's some momentum toward the future here. Okay, if we take the action, we can get some momentum toward the future here in the early to mid part of the summer. So anyway, that is going to do it. So there's that list there for you. Just as a review. And like I said, feel free to comment, give me your opinions on what you think these aspects mean. My website is down there below. You can send me an email if you are interested in doing a personal reading, or you can participate in what I call creating compatibility. It's just a nice way of approaching relationship astrology. And you can learn more about that on my website. You can also follow me on my other social media if you want more frequent updates. All these things I'll talk about in those posts, but I post probably a few times a week depending on what is happening astrologically. So my Facebook page, Sovereign Harmony Astrology, pretty simple, and that's got a pretty decent following at this point. So you can jump on that. My Twitter/X and Instagram are a little weak at this point because I've been kind of doing the Facebook thing for many years. So I have a bigger audience there. But if those are your style, I post the exact same thing that I post on Facebook. It'll be on Instagram with a photo of a chart, and it'll also be on Twitter. That's your thing. And if you're on Telegram, you can also find Sovereign Harmony Astrology as well. So thanks again for sitting in with me here, having a listen. And it kind of feels like when I did my last video in late March, it felt like, oh, there's this heavy energy moving through. It's going to be intense. And this has kind of the opposite feeling. It feels like we've gotten through it. And now, things are starting to fall into place, really. And so all we got to really do is just be ready for it, be conscious of it, and not let opportunities slip by. But at the same time, there may be, an abundance of opportunities that we weren't even expecting. That's a lot of the way this energy could work. We could be finding things culminating that like we almost forgot about, like, oh, I put that in the back burner a long time ago, and now all of a sudden there's an opportunity for this. So that's the kind of energy we have entering into the summer. And again, late summer into the fall, those things get a little more intense again. But we might as well ride this wave while we have it. I mean, we don't even have another Mercury retrograde until August, so it doesn't even enter its shadow until late July. So this whole period from right now in late May through early to mid-July, at the very least, it's very flowing, very growing, very expanding. So let's take advantage of it. So thanks a lot again, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.